You know, the story of empires seems pretty straightforward, right? Colonies fight for their freedom, they break away, and boom, a new independent nation is born. But what if I told you that some countries, when they were offered that exact freedom, just said, no thanks? Yeah, we're going to dive into that really fascinating and kind of counterintuitive choice.
Think about it. It's this powerful idea we're all taught in history class, the universal desire to be free, to be independent. But when you actually look closer at the record, you've got to ask, is breaking free always the ultimate goal? This question, it turns out, uncovers a way more complicated story about what people actually want.
So we're focusing on a choice that really goes against almost everything we assume about national ambition. The decision to, well, to stay put. It's definitely the road less traveled in our history books, but it reveals some pretty fascinating truths about identity, security, and power.
And here's the core premise, coming straight from our source material. It's this simple, but honestly stunning fact, that during the massive wave of decolonization, some places just rejected independence. That one idea completely reframes how we think about the end of empires.
All right, our first stop is the iconic Rock of Gibraltar. It's this tiny little territory that had a huge decision to make. And as you're about to see, they didn't just make that choice once. They made it twice.
Yeah, this was no fluke. Gibraltar was facing all this pressure and these competing claims for its land, so they held votes, referendums on their own future. In both of those votes, the population had a really clear choice, and both times they voted decisively to remain a British territory. Talk about cementing your identity.
Okay, now let's head way down to the South Atlantic for an even more dramatic example. The Falkland Islands were facing a very similar question about their future, and their answer, well, it was one of the most decisive votes in modern history.
So the islanders were asked a simple question. Do you want to stay or do you want to go? Before I show you a result, just take a second and guess. What percentage of the population do you think voted to remain a British territory?
99%. I'm just going to let that sink in for a moment. 99%. In an age where everything is so divided, a result like this it's almost unbelievable. It is about as close to a unanimous decision as you can possibly get from an entire population. The result was just absolutely overwhelming. Out of more than 1,500 votes that were cast, only 3, I repeat, 3, were against remaining a British overseas territory. So for the people living there, this was about so much more than just a flag. It was a crystal clear statement about their cultural identity, their whole way of life, and their right to choose their own future.
So we've looked at Gibraltar, we've looked at the Falkland Islands. What can we really take away from these stories? What do these incredibly powerful votes actually tell us about the world?
So what's the common thread here, right? In both of these cases, people chose what they saw as stability, security, and a connection to an identity they already had over a potentially uncertain future as a new independent nation. It tells us that self-determination isn't always about creating something new. Sometimes it's about choosing to preserve what you've already got.
And really, this all leads us to a much, much deeper question. What truly defines a nation's identity anyway? If it's not just about sovereignty and having your own flag, then what is it? Is it a shared culture, economic security, a common history? As Gibraltar and the Falklands show us, the answer is a messy, complex mix of all those things, and it's a choice that belongs to the people themselves.
Anyway, on that note, as our source material so beautifully puts it, subscribe or Evil Larry will haunt you. So you probably should. Thanks for tuning in.